So, how did Jesus deal with hypocrisy, and how are we supposed to deal with hypocrisy? Chapter 23, verse 1. Then Jesus said to the crowds and his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. So do and observe whatever they tell you, but not the works they do, for they preach, but they do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move with their finger. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and the fringes long, and they love the places of honor and feasts and the best seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the marketplace, and being called rabbi, teacher, by others. But you are not called rabbi, you're not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And call no man on earth your father, for you have one Father who is in heaven. Neither be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Christ. The greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. He is not saying don't call people pastor. He is not saying don't call people your priest father. I have a friend who's a priest in the Anglican Church. He goes by Father Darrell. It's okay to refer to your priest as father, to your leader as father, to your leader as pastor or bishop or whatever the case. It's not what he's talking about. He's talking about responding to, referring to these goober clowns who do not practice what they preach as father, as rabbi, as teacher, honoring the hypocrite with honor that they are not due. He wants to get rid of the hypocritical attitude. So if you refer to a leader who is a hypocrite by these sorts of things, and you don't have the discernment to pick up on the hypocrisy, or if you do have the discernment to pick up on the hypocrisy, that you don't call them out on it and say, look, fix the problem. Let's fix the problem. I will help you. I will work with you to fix the problem. Then you have no business referring to them by honorific titles. Honorific titles come when honor actually is. Well, they have the capacity to preach and practice what they preach. I'm used to hearing this say as a rail against the Catholic Church, or a rail against the Anglican Communion, or a rail against Judaism, or whatever the case, or a rail against the fivefold ministry. It's not what he's driving at. He's driving at the hypocrisy. He's driving at the people who attempt to sit in the seat of Moses and judge, sit in his place, but they don't have the earned authority to do so because they choose to chronically live and embrace lifestyles of compromise. Pam, do you have any thoughts? So, when you say you're going to do something, then do it. Our responsibility is to do it. If you have somebody who is consistent in your life, who is your priest, as a Catholic or an Anglican, and I say this as a Jew, who is consistent with practicing what they preach and teach, I don't think there's anything wrong with referring to them as father and treating them as some sort of a father figure in your life. I don't think there's anything wrong with calling your pastor who is consistent pastor so-and-so or bishop so-and-so or whatever the case, provided they're consistent, provided they bear the fruit of the Spirit and the fruit in keeping with repentance, provided they have a proper self-perception of themselves, realizing that, hey, they were messed up and Jesus rescued them, and they carry that attitude of rescue in everything they do. They actually are fathering people. Pharisees were not fathering people, but they were demanding people refer to them as if they were. We have a whole lot of people who like to Facebook post their title of apostle or prophet or blah, 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 whatever the case, or this is an apostolic house, but they have no desire to actually father. They have no desire for consistency. They want everybody to kiss their ring and lick their boots. And we have that attitude, and it's rife in the charismatic church. Our responsibility is to accord the honor to those people who are choosing to walk out their dignity and walk out what they have. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that also shall he reap. You know, faith without works is
dead.
Show me your faith by what you do. That's what Jesus is driving at. See, he talks about these things. Don't call this person rabbi or father or teacher or whatever the case, or instructor, and don't be called that. He's referring to, in the context, this group of people that he just got done illustrating that do not flow consistently and have not earned the title rabbi, teacher, father, instructor. The phylacteries are broad and the fringes are long, but their love is not long, their humility is not long, their forbearance is not long, their meekness is not long, their love is not long. Now, I understand that we make some room for woundedness. We make some room for people who are growing, because we're all in a process. I'm not talking about perfection the way we count perfection. I'm talking about, are they walking in holiness and perfection as in completion? Because perfection in the New Testament really just means completion. Are they walking out the completed deposit of what they have received in this season for this season? Are they using the available resources that they got in this season to execute this season? If they're even making an effort, honor them. But if they're not practicing what they preach, speak up and correct them. Coach them, etc. And be willing to admit that you may not have all the answers, but you might see something a little off here or there. Do you have anything to add, my dear? Okay. So, I bless you each to pick up what needs to be picked up out of this and to run with it and to get what he is actually saying in Matthew 23 in these first 12 verses. Be at peace, and we love you guys. Bye-bye.